I stared at the stark white ceiling of my hospital room, counting the hairline cracks in the paint. The fluorescent lights hummed their mechanical lullaby while machines beeped steadily beside my bed, monitoring vitals that apparently mattered more to strangers than to my own family. My left arm was in a cast, my ribs wrapped tight enough to make each breath a reminder of the SUV that had T-boned my sedan 3 days ago. The doctors said I was lucky. Lucky to be alive. Lucky the internal bleeding had stopped. Lucky my spine was intact. I didn't feel lucky. The door opened and Nurse Kelly walked in, her sensible shoes squeaking against the linoleum. She'd been the one to call my parents that first night, the one who'd left the message that their youngest daughter was in the emergency room with multiple fractures, a concussion, and possible internal injuries. I'd heard her voice through the fog of painkillers, professional and clear, explaining that I needed someone to come, that I shouldn't be alone. She checked my IV now, her movements efficient but kind. Kelly had kind eyes. I'd noticed that about her in these 3 days. The way she looked at me like I was actually there, actually visible. "How's the pain level today?" she asked, making notes on her tablet. "Manageable," I said. It was a lie. Everything hurt. But not the kind of hurt she could chart or medicate. She nodded, then hesitated. I could see the question forming, the same one that had been hovering between us since that first night. "Have you heard from your family?" I turned my head toward the window, watching Seattle's gray October sky press against the glass. "They're busy," I said. "My sister's birthday was this week. Big celebration." Kelly's silence was eloquent. She'd made that call. She'd explained the severity. And in the 3 days since, not a single Whitmore besides me had walked through that door. After she left, I reached for my phone with my good hand. The movement sent sharp protests through my ribs, but I needed to see. Some part of me, some pathetic, hopeful part, thought maybe they'd posted something, an apology, an explanation, a sign that they'd at least considered coming. What I found was worse than nothing. My mother's Instagram was a gallery of celebration. Madison's 28th birthday party had been everything I'd expected. The photos scrolled past in a parade of perfection. The restaurant's private dining room draped in rose gold and cream, Madison's dress shimmering under carefully arranged lighting, the cake that probably cost more than my monthly rent. My mother had captured every angle, every smile, every toast. I kept scrolling. Surely somewhere in this documentation of familial love, there'd be a mention. A caption that said something like, "Celebrating despite worry," or "Thoughts with our other daughter." Something. Anything. Instead, I found the family photo. They'd gathered at the end of the night, all of them. My father, tall and distinguished in his tailored suit. My mother, elegant as always, her highlighted hair perfect. Madison in the center, radiant, holding her bouquet of roses. Behind them, their friends and Madison's friends, everyone arranged just so for the camera. The caption read, "Blessed beyond measure with this beautiful family. Happy birthday to our shining star." I stared at that photo until my eyes burned. Not from the concussion, not from the medication, from the absolute crystalline clarity of my invisibility. I wasn't in the photo because I wasn't there. And I wasn't there because I was here, in this hospital bed with machines breathing for my family since they couldn't be bothered to breathe with me. But that wasn't the part that hurt. The part that hurt was that in this picture of family, in this moment of being blessed beyond measure, my absence wasn't even notable enough to mention. I could have been dead. For all they'd known when Kelly called, I might have been dying. And they'd gone to dinner anyway. They'd ordered wine and posed for pictures and celebrated their shining star while I lay in an emergency room wondering if anyone would come. The message was clear. I wasn't part of the family in that photo. Maybe I never had been. My phone buzzed. A text from Lily, my roommate and closest friend. "Visiting hours soon, bringing you real food. The kind that doesn't taste like sadness. Hang in there, love." I closed my eyes, feeling the sting of tears I refused to let fall. Lily had been here every day. She'd brought me clothes, books, my laptop. She'd talked to the doctors when I was too foggy to understand. She'd held my hand during the worst of the pain and never once made me feel like an inconvenience. My family hadn't even called. The memories came then, uninvited but insistent. They always did when I was alone, when I couldn't distract myself. I was 7 years old, standing in my elementary school gym during the awards ceremony, clutching my certificate for Student of the Year. I'd worked so hard. Perfect grades, perfect behavior, perfect everything. I'd imagined my parents' faces when they saw it, imagined finally being the one they were proud of. But Madison had a piano recital that same evening. An important one, my mother said. A real showcase of talent. So my father stayed home to work, and my mother took Madison to her recital. And I stood in that gym with my teacher's hand on my shoulder, trying to smile while all the other kids ran to their families and I had no one to run to. Your parents must be so proud, my teacher had said. I'd nodded. I'd even believed it might be true. They'd just been busy. Next time would be different. There were so many next times. Academic competitions I won alone. Science fairs where my projects earned ribbons that no one saw. The full ride scholarship to UW that should have been celebrated, but was instead overshadowed by Madison getting into some boutique design program in California that cost more per semester than my entire 4 years of state school tuition. Every achievement I earned was met with polite acknowledgement at best, or, more often, complete dismissal. Meanwhile, Madison's mediocrity was celebrated like genius. She'd maintained a 2.8 GPA through college while working part-time at a boutique, which apparently demonstrated exceptional time management skills. I'd graduated summa cum laude while working 3 jobs and caring for my dying grandmother in her final months, which demonstrated nothing worth mentioning at family dinners. The pattern was so consistent it became background noise. White noise, the constant hum of being second choice, second thought, second class in my own family. Birthdays were perhaps the cruelest reminder. Madison's birthdays were productions. Rented venues, catered meals, gift tables that looked like department store displays. Mine were afterthoughts. Dinner at whatever restaurant wasn't too busy, a card with cash in it, maybe a gift if my mother had found time to shop. One year, she'd wrapped something clearly meant for Madison and given it to me instead. It was a designer handbag in a style I'd never wear, in a color Madison loved. When I pointed out the name embroidered inside was hers, my mother had laughed it off as a silly mistake and said I should appreciate the thought anyway. The thought. As if accidentally giving me my sister's unwanted gift demonstrated any thought at all. But I'd adapted. I'd learned to want less, expect nothing, and make my own celebrations. Lily and my college friends became the family I chose. We celebrated each other's wins, mourned each other's losses, showed up for each other in ways that mattered. I'd convinced myself I didn't need my parents' approval anymore. I'd outgrown it, evolved past it. Lying in this hospital bed, I realized I'd been lying to myself. Because some part of me had still hoped. Some stupid, stubborn part of me had believed that eventually, when it really mattered, they'd show up. That there was some line they wouldn't cross, some emergency serious enough to override their devotion to Madison. I'd found that line, and they'd stepped right over it. My phone buzzed again. This time, my mother's name appeared on the screen. My heart jumped despite everything, despite knowing better. Maybe they were calling to explain, maybe they were on their way. I answered. Hello? Oh, good, you're awake. My mother's voice was bright, cheerful, completely untroubled. We've been meaning to call. How are you feeling? The casualness of it knocked the breath from my lungs more effectively than the accident had. How was I feeling? As if I'd had a cold, not a near-death experience. I'm in the hospital, Mom. I've been here for 3 days with a broken arm, cracked ribs, and a concussion. The doctors say I'm lucky I'm not paralyzed. Well, that's dramatic. She laughed lightly. You know how you get when you want attention? I'm sure it's not as bad as all that. I closed my eyes, breathed. Tried to find words that wouldn't come out as a scream. The hospital called you. Nurse Kelly explained everything. Yes, and we did worry, sweetheart, we did. But it was Madison's birthday, and you know how important that is. We couldn't just cancel everything because you were feeling a bit under the weather. Under the weather? My voice cracked. I was hit by an SUV running a red light. I was unconscious when the ambulance arrived. That's not under the weather. That's nearly dead. There's no need to be hysterical. Her tone shifted, taking on that edge of disappointment I knew so well. We knew you were being taken care of. Hospitals are full of professionals. It's not like you needed us there. Besides, you've always been so independent, so capable. I'm sure you handled it just fine on your own. The logic was dizzying. My independence, earned through years of necessity, was now the justification for abandoning me. I'd been too self-sufficient to need them, so they hadn't come. Never mind that being capable didn't mean I wanted to face something terrifying alone. Never mind that even the strongest people need someone to hold their hand sometimes. Did you see the photos from the party? My mother continued, her voice warming again. Madison looked absolutely stunning. The cake was a work of art. You really should have tried to make it. Everyone asked about you. They asked about me, past tense, as if my absence had been a choice, as if I'd simply skipped the party rather than being physically unable to attend because I was busy not dying. I couldn't make it because I was in intensive care, I said slowly, clearly, as if explaining to a child. With injuries that could have killed me, that should have been more important than birthday cake? Now you're just being spiteful. My mother sighed, the long-suffering sound of someone dealing with an unreasonable person. I don't know why you insist on making everything about you. Madison's birthday comes once a year. Your little accident could have waited a few days. My little accident, as if I'd planned it. As if I'd arranged to be nearly killed just to inconvenience them during Madison's special week? Is that really what you think? I asked quietly. That I got hit by a car on purpose? That I'm lying in a hospital bed with machines monitoring my internal bleeding just to steal attention from Madison? You've always been jealous of your sister. My mother's voice was matter-of-fact now, stating what she believed to be an obvious truth. Ever since you were little, you've resented the fact that she's special, that she has talents and charm that come naturally. You've always had to work so hard for everything, and it's made you bitter. I understand that, sweetheart, I do. But at some point, you need to accept that not everyone is meant to shine the way Madison does. The words landed like physical blows. All these years, all this favoritism, and she'd convinced herself it was somehow my fault. That I deserved less because I was less. That Madison's shine was inherent and earned, while anything I accomplished was just the desperate scrambling of someone trying to be something I wasn't. I graduated top of my class, I said, my voice shaking now. I have 3 job offers from Fortune 500 companies. I've won awards, scholarships, recognition from people who actually see my worth. But none of that matters to you because I'm not Madison. Nothing I do will ever matter to you because I'm not her. That's not fair. My mother's tone turned wounded. We love you both equally, but you have to understand Madison needs more support. She's sensitive, creative, not as naturally independent as you. We have to help her more because she needs it more. That doesn't mean we love you less. It was the same argument I'd heard my entire life, dressed up in the language of need rather than worth. Madison needed more, so she got more. Madison was sensitive, so she required careful handling. Madison was creative, so she deserved special treatment. Meanwhile, I was independent, capable, self-sufficient, which apparently meant I didn't need love or support or parents who gave a damn whether I lived or died. You didn't come, I said simply. I almost died and you didn't come. We'll visit soon, my mother promised, already moving on. Once things settle down, Madison's been so stressed from the party planning, she needs some recovery time. Maybe next week or the week after. We'll see how our schedules look. Don't bother, I said. What? Don't bother visiting. Don't bother calling. Don't bother pretending you care. I'm done. Now listen here, young lady. My mother's voice sharpened. I will not tolerate this attitude. You're being childish and melodramatic. When you're ready to apologize and act like an adult, we'll be happy to discuss this. But until then, maybe you should think about how your behavior affects this family. I laughed. Actually laughed. The sound hurt my ribs, but I couldn't stop it. My behavior affects this family? Mom, I was nearly killed and you went to a birthday party. That's not my behavior. That's yours. And it tells me everything I need to know about where I stand in this family. You're upset and you're on medication. We'll talk when you're thinking more clearly. She was using her reasonable voice now, the one that made me sound like the irrational one. Get some rest, sweetheart. Feel better soon. She hung up before I could respond. Just ended the call, probably going back to scrolling through birthday photos or planning Madison's next celebration. The conversation would be reframed in her mind as me being difficult again, ungrateful again, jealous again. She'd tell my father and Madison that I'd been hysterical, that I'd said hurtful things, that I was clearly not myself, and they'd believe her because it fit the narrative they'd built. I was the problem child, the difficult one, the daughter who just couldn't be happy for her sister's success. I set the phone down carefully, my hands trembling. Something inside me felt different, shifted, like a bone that had been broken for years, finally snapping fully, cleanly, ready to heal properly at last. I'd spent 24 years trying to earn their love, trying to be good enough, smart enough, accomplished enough to matter. I'd believed that if I just worked hard enough, achieved enough, proved my worth enough, they'd finally see me, finally value me, finally love me the way they loved Madison. But they'd shown me the truth. When I was at my most vulnerable, my most in need, they'd chosen Madison's birthday over my survival. That wasn't a misunderstanding or a mistake. That was a choice, a clear statement of priorities, and no amount of achievement or effort or perfect behavior was going to change that equation. The door opened and Lily walked in, carrying bags from my favorite Thai place. Her face lit up when she saw me awake, then immediately clouded with concern. "What's wrong? Are you in pain? Should I get the nurse?" I shook my head, tried to smile, failed. My mom called. "Oh." Lily set down the food and came to my bedside, taking my good hand in both of hers. What did she say? That I'm being dramatic, that the accident could have waited. That I'm jealous of Madison and I need to think about how my behavior affects the family? Lily's expression darkened. I'd told her stories over the years, glimpses of the favoritism and dismissal, but I'd always softened them, made excuses, tried to convince both of us that it wasn't as bad as it felt. But sitting here now, saying it out loud, there was no way to soften it. "They still haven't come," Lily said quietly. "No, and they're not going to." "I'm so sorry." She squeezed my hand. "You deserve so much better than this." "I know," I said. And for the first time in my life, I actually meant it. I knew. Not in some abstract intellectual way, but as a deep, unshakable truth. I deserved better. I deserved parents who showed up, who celebrated my victories and mourned my losses and gave a damn when I was hurt. I deserved to be seen, valued, loved not for what I achieved, but simply for existing. And I wasn't going to get that from them. No amount of hoping or trying or proving would change that. They'd made their choice a long time ago, and I'd just been too desperate to accept it. "What are you going to do?" Lily asked. I looked at her, this friend who'd become more family than my actual family ever was, who'd rearranged her schedule to be here every day, who'd brought me food and company and care without being asked, without keeping score, without conditions. "I'm going to get better," I said, "and then I'm going to build a life they're not part of." "Are you sure?" Lily's concern was genuine. "I mean, they're your parents, your family." "No," I said clearly. "They're my DNA donors. Family is what you make it. Family shows up, family cares. Family doesn't celebrate birthdays while you're in intensive care. You're more family to me than they've ever been." Lily's eyes filled with tears. "I love you, you know that? You're one of the strongest people I know." "I don't feel strong." "That's because you're doing it alone. You shouldn't have to be this strong. But since you do, since they've forced you to be, you might as well use that strength for yourself instead of trying to win their approval." She was right. All this strength, all this capability they dismissed as just my personality, as something that made me need them less, had been built through years of necessity. Years of being ignored and dismissed and expected to handle everything myself. I developed independence as a survival skill, not a choice. But I could choose now. I could choose to take all that hard-won strength and use it to build something better. Something that didn't include waiting by a phone that never rang, hoping for approval that never came, settling for crumbs from a table I'd never be invited to sit at. Over the next week, I healed. My body knitted itself back together with the determined efficiency that had characterized my whole life. The doctors were impressed by my progress. Nurse Kelly said I was one of the most motivated recovery patients she'd seen. I smiled and thanked her and didn't explain that motivation was easier when you had no one to be weak for. No one to lean on. No safety net but your own determination. My phone stayed quiet. No calls from my parents. No visits. Madison posted more photos from her birthday week, each one a study in family happiness that didn't include me. I stopped looking, stopped checking, let the silence speak its truth. Lily brought me my laptop, and I started making plans. Real plans. I'd been coasting in some ways, taking the safe path, the expected path, the path that required the least from me. I'd accepted the job offer that was closest to home, easiest to explain, most likely to impress people who couldn't be impressed. Screw that. I emailed the CEO of a startup I'd interviewed with months ago, one I'd turned down because it felt too risky, too far from family, too uncertain. A tech company in San Francisco building accessibility software for people with disabilities. They'd wanted me badly enough to make an incredible offer. I'd said no because Seattle was home, because family was here, because I'd convinced myself that proximity might eventually equal connection. Is the position still available? I wrote. I'm ready to take risks now. They responded within hours. Yes, absolutely yes. When could I start? Give me 6 weeks to recover and relocate, I replied. Then I'm yours. Lily helped me start packing when I got home from the hospital. My apartment was small but mine, filled with things I'd chosen and earned and loved. We boxed up my books, my clothes, my life, and I felt lighter with each box we sealed. You're really doing this? Lily said, more statement than question. I really am. Can I visit in San Francisco? You better, I said. You're my family now. We don't abandon each other. She hugged me carefully, mindful of my healing ribs. They're going to regret this someday. When you're wildly successful and happy and they realize what they lost. Maybe, I said, but that's not why I'm doing it. I'm not trying to prove anything to them anymore. I'm doing this for me. And I was. The job in San Francisco was everything I'd denied myself by playing it safe. It was challenging, innovative, meaningful work with a mission I believed in. The salary was ridiculous, the benefits better. The opportunity to grow, to lead, to build something important was everything I'd worked for. But more than that, it was distance. Physical space between me and the family who couldn't see me even when I was right in front of them. Room to breathe without the weight of their dismissal. Freedom to build a life where my worth wasn't measured against Madison's shine. 6 weeks later, I left Seattle. Lily drove me to the airport, helped me navigate with my still healing arm, hugged me goodbye at security with tears streaming down both our faces. Call me when you land, she said, and text me every day, and visit for Thanksgiving because I'm not spending it with just my weird cousins. Deal, I promised. I didn't tell my parents I was leaving, didn't announce my new job, my move, my plans. Let them find out however they'd find out, or not at all. It didn't matter anymore. The plane lifted off over Puget Sound, and I watched Seattle shrink below me. Somewhere down there, my parents were probably having dinner with Madison, laughing and talking and not noticing that one member of the family was gone. That was fine. I'd been gone for years. I was just making it official now. San Francisco welcomed me with fog and possibility. The startup was everything they'd promised. Fast-paced, innovative, filled with brilliant people who valued ideas over pedigree. I threw myself into the work with the same determination that had carried me through everything else. But this time, it was different. This time, I was working for myself, building something because I wanted to, because it mattered to me, not to prove anything to anyone. I made friends, real friends, people who chose to spend time with me, who laughed at my jokes, who asked about my day and actually listened to the answer. I dated casually, learning what it felt like to be chosen, to be wanted, to be someone's first choice instead of consolation prize. And I succeeded. God, did I succeed. Within a year, I was leading my own team. Within 2 years, I was director of product development. The work we were doing was getting national attention, awards, recognition from people who mattered in ways my parents never had. I bought a condo with a view of the bay, adopted a cat who slept on my feet at night, built a life that was mine. All mine, full of people who saw me and valued me and showed up when I needed them. My phone stayed silent from Seattle, no calls from my parents checking in, asking how I was, wondering where I'd gone. Either they hadn't noticed I'd left, or they'd noticed and hadn't cared enough to reach out. Both options hurt in different ways, but the hurt was distant now, old pain from old wounds that had finally scarred over. Lily visited often. She'd gotten a promotion at her own job, something about my independence inspiring her to take more risks. We explored San Francisco together, ate too much dim sum, laughed until we cried, built new memories that had nothing to do with the past I'd left behind. "You're happy," she said one night, sitting on my balcony with wine and city lights. Like, really happy. I can see it in your face. I considered that. Was I happy, or had I just gotten used to the absence of unhappiness? But no, it was more than that. I woke up most mornings excited about my day. I went to bed most nights satisfied with what I'd accomplished. I had people I loved who loved me back, work that fulfilled me, a life that felt purposeful and chosen. "Yeah," I said, surprised by how true it was. "I am happy." 3 years after the accident, I gave a TED Talk about accessibility and technology. It went viral. Suddenly, I was being interviewed, quoted, asked to speak at conferences. My parents, I assumed, remained oblivious. We existed in parallel universes now, my success and their favoritism never intersecting. Until they did. The email came on a Tuesday, my mother's name in my inbox after 3 years of silence. The subject line, "We need to talk." I stared at it for a long time before opening it. Some part of me, that same stupid, hopeful part that had answered the phone from my hospital bed, wondered if maybe this was the apology, the acknowledgement, the moment they finally saw me and realized what they'd lost. "We saw your TED Talk," the email began. "We had no idea you were doing so well. Why didn't you tell us about your success? We would have loved to celebrate with you. We're your parents, we deserve to know what's happening in your life. Please call us, we have so much to catch up on. Love, Mom." I read it 3 times. Looking for the apology that wasn't there, the acknowledgement of their absence, their dismissal, the years of favoritism that had driven me away. Instead, there was entitlement. They deserved to know. They would have loved to celebrate. As if the past hadn't happened. As if 3 years of silence was somehow my fault for not keeping them informed. No mention of the hospital. No acknowledgement that they'd missed my recovery, my move, my entire transformation. No apology for prioritizing Madison's birthday over my survival. Just surprise at my success and indignation that I hadn't shared it with them. I closed the laptop and walked out onto my balcony. The city sprawled before me, full of light and life and possibility. My city now, my home, my chosen life with my chosen family. I thought about responding. Thought about explaining everything they'd missed, everything they'd cost themselves by their dismissal. Thought about finally telling them how much they'd hurt me, how deeply their favoritism had cut, how their absence from my hospital room had been the clearest statement of love I'd ever received from them. But what would be the point? They'd reframe it, make it about my sensitivity, my jealousy, my inability to understand that Madison needed more. They'd make themselves the victims of my unreasonable expectations, my dramatic nature, my refusal to accept that not everyone could shine like Madison. They couldn't see me 3 years ago when I was right in front of them, broken and bleeding and begging for their presence. They wouldn't see me now just because I was successful. They'd see my success. They'd want to claim it, to bask in reflected glory, to tell their friends about their accomplished daughter. But they wouldn't see me. I sat down at my laptop and typed a response. Short, clear, true. "I didn't tell you because we're not in each other's lives anymore. That was your choice when you skipped my hospital room for Madison's birthday party. I've moved on. I suggest you do the same." I hit send before I could second-guess myself. Closed the laptop. Breathed. My phone rang almost immediately. My mother's number. I let it go to voicemail. Then she called again. And again. Each call went unanswered. Finally, the voicemails started. I didn't listen to them. I blocked the number. Blocked my father's number. Blocked Madison's. Drew a clean line between the family I'd been born into and the life I'd built without them. Lily came over that night with Thai food, the same kind she'd brought to my hospital room 3 years ago. We sat on my balcony and ate pad thai and didn't talk about my parents because they didn't deserve the breath it would take to discuss them. "You okay?" she asked eventually. "Yeah," I said. And I meant it. I really am. Because I was. I was happy, successful, surrounded by people who actually cared. I had meaningful work, a beautiful home, a life I'd built entirely on my own terms. Everything I was, everything I'd accomplished, had been done without them. Their absence had been the making of me, not the breaking. They'd see that now, see what they'd missed, what they'd lost, what they'd thrown away when they chose a birthday party over my survival. Maybe they'd regret it. Maybe they'd spend the rest of their lives wondering what I was doing, where I was, if I was thinking of them. I hoped they wondered. I hoped it kept them up at night. I hoped Madison's shine felt a little dimmer knowing that her birthday had cost them a daughter. But mostly, I hoped I'd never think of them again. I raised my glass to Lily, to the city below us, to the life I'd chosen and earned and built from nothing. To family, I said. The kind you choose. To family, Lily echoed, clinking her glass against mine. And in that moment, sitting on my balcony with my best friend and my cat and my hard-won happiness, I was exactly where I was supposed to be. Not invisible anymore. Not second choice. Not fighting for scraps of affection from people who had none to give. Just me. Seen, valued, and finally free.